This was one of the darkest match-fixing moments in snooker history. Stephen Lee deliberately used the wrong cueing action to miss the green and send Ding Junhui into the final for a €350,000 payoff. That kind of blatant fix eventually cost him a 12-year ban and completely destroyed his career. This infamous scandal came from the 2012 Welsh Open. With Stephen Lee controlling the scoreline at his peak, the match was dragged all the way to 4-4. All he had to do was lose the deciding frame, and the €350,000 would be his. But then Ding Junhui missed an escape, and suddenly Lee found himself in an awkward spot. Because he wanted to lose so badly, he deliberately missed a red. After the miss, he even slammed his cue against the table, putting on a pretty convincing act. To be fair, the red was not an easy pot, so the crowd didn't notice anything unusual at first. But what Lee did next completely exposed the shameless truth. Ding missed again. The cue ball and red were frozen together. Seeing that position, Lee looked even more anxious than Ding, because he really wanted to lose. Then the red was potted cleanly into the left corner. Only then did Lee seem to relax. Ding's break looked smooth, and Lee was already sitting there, like he could almost count the money. But the next positional mistake dragged him right back to reality. The angle onto the last red on the cushion was terrible. Ding had no choice but to play safe. And that was bad news for Lee. Because the fewer balls left on the table, the harder it would be for him to throw the frame. Without making it obvious. Beautiful escape. Purely in terms of cue ball control, Stephen Lee was absolutely elite. Then Ding left a chance. Lee got a very good long red. If he hadn't been paid to lose, the frame would have ended right there. The red rattled and stayed out, but the cue ball finished in a perfect snooker. Even at this point, Lee's technique was still so good that he kept everyone in the arena fooled. But very soon, the act started to crack. Ding was no joke in safety play either. He quickly returned the snooker. But for Lee, that level of safety was nothing special. What a shot! The red went cleanly into the bottom pocket, but there was not a hint of joy on his face. He was trying so hard to play dumb and throw the frame, but in that key moment, he accidentally revealed his real class. That high-difficulty swerve shot was one of his trademark weapons, but it also pushed him into a very awkward position, because now only the colors were left, and they were all sitting nicely. Unless he started giving the frame away in an obvious way, it would be very hard for him to lose. He rolled in the yellow, and the cue ball landed perfectly on the green. It was a perfect hand-placed position. Even a beginner could have potted that green. But to get the money, Stephen Lee stopped pretending. This was just absurd. A professional player can miss from nerves, that happens. But this was different. This was an obvious case of deliberately using the wrong cueing action. At that point, it looked like he thought the audience were fools. That kind of terrible acting was never going to escape the attention of the authorities. In the end, after multiple fixed matches were exposed, Stephen Lee was handed a 12-year ban and completely disappeared from the snooker stage.